Hey, welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Berdinsky. Somewhere over there is Christopher K. Shortell, soon to be former Republican town councilor. Chris, want to talk about it, an eventful couple of days, but I wanted to start out just a general question for you before we break it down. Tuesday night was a big night. I think you were following things very closely. How did you feel Tuesday night?
It's you're on the edge of your seat, and a lot of emotion.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't know if it's going to be close or not. It looked like it wasn't going to be close.
Yeah.
And I was up late, but the Braves did it. The Braves won the World Series.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Congratulations. All right. Well, that's a good thing. So, hey, look. Before we get to the election, I wanted to make a little commentary about vaccine hesitancy. It's been in the news a lot, especially in connection with Chicago, New York City, police departments, fire departments, sanitation workers having a high percentage of unvaccinated. The Citizen Mike Show was able to sneak into a local doctor's office and plant a microphone and a camera in order to try to get some insight into this vaccine hesitancy. We came away with a little clip, which is quite informing. Let's show that one now. 3, 2, 1.
Well, sir, I'm not sure what's going on yet, but we're going to send you for some tests. Oh, okay. We're going to do some lab work, of course. We're going to do a whole body CT scan. Okay. We're going to get a lumbar puncture. No problem. We're also going to do a colonoscopy. Hey, you're the doc. Followed by a brain biopsy. You got to do what you got to do. We should also do an experimental surgery where we replace your spleen with a second liver. Hey, I trust you, doc. Whatever you say. And let's go ahead and get you a COVID vaccine. No. I'm sorry? I'm not getting the vaccine. It significantly decreases your risk of becoming critically ill or dying from COVID. I just don't know if I can trust you. You just said you trusted me. Well, that was before you recommended something that the TV told me is problematic. I just don't want you to get sick. I promise you it's safe. Doctors don't know everything. I went to school for years. This is the exact thing I know about. I'll take my chances with the virus. Well, do you still want the second liver surgery? Oh, yeah.
Chris, let's get over to the local election results. I wanted to get some data sort of on the record a little bit to provide some context. First on mayoral turnout. When I say mayoral turnout, the people who voted for mayor, this is not counting the ballots, but the people who voted for mayor 2019 compared to 2021, there was 526 more people voting for mayor this year than they did in 2019. Riley O'Connell lost to the mayor by 396 votes. I'm not saying there's a connection between those two numbers, but it does provide some context. So I first want to talk to you about the mayoral race. Your view, why did Riley get so closer than anyone else has before?
Well, I just want to congratulate the winners, and I want to congratulate the candidates, all of them. It's a slog to get in. To get that even a word? To get in there, though, you start in the spring, and so I just want to acknowledge that a lot of good people, all qualified, and it's Wallingford had a lot of good choices. As far as Riley, he was. Where do I begin? I mean, he just had. He's very likable personally. He's articulate. And I, as a counselor, so I've only been up there, it's into my 6th year, my 3rd term, but you tend to see people come to the mic during the election cycle. It's the people, they don't show, most of them aren't there the rest of the other 18 months or whatever, but then they start coming to the mic. And when Riley would come to the mic, number one, he wasn't always coming to the mic. He would just sit there and listen, which I've never seen before. Someone actually just listening. But sometimes he would come to the mic, and I always sort of thought when he would make his point, he was making a valid point, asking a solid question. So I think that was a big thing. I think his mailer, which we will probably get into, that the Record Journal did an article on, was a big factor. And I think the mayor made some missteps, frankly, this term. This was a consequential term, and we'll get into that. And I think all of that, it was a perfect storm. And for Riley to do as well as he did, coming from where he came from, kind of no one knew who he was. and in what I would say is a red wave election. He almost did it, and it's insane to think about.
Yeah. So the mayor's negatives, I think, piled up a little bit. Negatives over the years. None of those negatives have been a deal breaker for most of the voters in Wallingford, but I think they've accumulated over time. The mayor, a lot of it has to do with the times. We talk about a red wave this time, but it also has to do with the mayor's opponents over the years. And of course, I was one of them, way back in the day. So I'm including myself in that pool, of opponents who couldn't do it. So now the mayor, meets a candidate who is very agile on his feet, and the negatives of the mayor combined with the positives of Riley, and you get a less than a 400 vote difference, I guess. Is it time for the mayor to not run again? Look, he looks at these numbers. He's had a tough time on the council for the last 2 years. His budgets have not succeeded. The councilors have overridden his vetoes. Do you think he's thinking publicly, I'll say I'm running again because I don't want to be a lame duck mayor, but privately I'm getting tired, time to go. What do you think?
It's not for me to say, it's for him.
Well, of course, but
I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I had a lot of disagreements with the mayor in the last 2 years, but the mayor has 38 years of service. And so I don't think that anyone should take the day he's not in that office is going to be a momentous day, whether you like him or not. And he has a wealth of experience. But what I will say is this, I don't know if it's time for him not to run. I think what it might be time for is for somebody, Vinnie Cervoni, Tom Lathan, Craig Fishpine, Christina Tata, Joe Marone, to walk into that office in 13 months and say, I'm primarying you. That's what it might be time for. And I think the votes indicate that. Or somebody, Christine Mansfield, somebody else who's Jerry Farrell, somebody else who's out there who's kind of left. But I think maybe that's what it's time for, because I think that the numbers may bear that out. But the mayor is a fighter, and the mayor may be like, I can't leave the, mayor may want to run, and let the voters, let the Republicans pick. But that's what I'll say to that question.
I want to get to some of the mailers that went out and get your view of them, and to get your view of them. One is that concerns me is from the mayor, and it's the typical postcard. I didn't make maybe I will, but I didn't make a copy for the screen. But he claims as one of his accomplishments, implementation of American Rescue Plan Act to provide grants to individuals and businesses with pandemic losses. Implementation of American Rescue Plan Act. I read that and I was somewhat horrified on a couple grounds. One, the act has not been implemented. But second, it certainly signals again, for the third or maybe the fourth time, that the mayor has decided where $13 million of federal funds is going to go without any consultation or collaboration with the council or the public, despite the widespread publicizing of other towns and other experts saying the spending of the money should be a collaborative effort. Some towns have set up steering committees, things like that, but oh no, not our mayor. Yet this is in his campaign mailer. And this is going to be the next big issue in the next 3 or 4 months. Your thoughts on the mayor's mailer and my thoughts.
I saw that, and it's something in this age of social media, and we're all connected now. Sometimes when you react to things, your reaction is as much to the thing as to how you wonder other people will react. So when I saw that, my first thought was, wait, we did this? Did I miss this? Was this on the consent agenda somewhere and it got just swept through? And then I thought, man, Brzezinski's going to lose it when he sees this. I wonder if he gets these mailers. I was just baffled. It hasn't happened. I mean, it has literally, it would be as if he wrote rebuilt community pool. It hasn't happened. I look, there's other things in that mailer beyond that I think are more egregious, but I don't know. I was shocked by that. I don't have any other I don't know how to, unless it's the intent is to say that this is going, because they think, I guess they're hiring the consultant. Has that gone out to bid?
Yeah, let's talk about that. It's gone out to bid. There's been one bidder. We're producing this episode on November 4 in the middle of the day. The interview of that one bidder, a consultant with very good credentials, I understand, is going to be tomorrow, November 5. It could be that the price envelope, we'll know his pricing in the middle of the week. And on the next episode of the Citizen Mike Show, we'll get into that a little bit, but that's the timing of it. Let's go to another mailer that the mayor sent out. And there's 6 or 7 or 8 bullet points. And one of them was, the mayor said, during the pandemic, town government offices stayed open to serve you. He listed that as an accomplishment, but maybe that's somewhat controversial, probably with you. Your thoughts?
It is with me. And I think we talked about, when I was still doing the show with you, I think we started talking about this as the pandemic was looming. I have 2 beliefs that make me a Republican. One of them is a belief in the core functions of government. Government has a responsibility to keep people safe. And that includes people who are vulnerable. And that's why I'm pro-life. And the COVID stuff, to me, is tied, for me, it's a pro-life issue. And so when you look at the town, of course, I understand these town halls throughout the state, people were working in town halls. No town hall was empty with everyone remote. So I get that. My issue is that it was never explored, to my knowledge, the ability, let's take an assessment of every department in that building to say, how can we work remotely? How could there's 7 people in the tax office. And these are, and we're going to get to the type of people in terms of vulnerability. Hold that thought, because I'm going to come back to that. But there's 7 people, say. Let's talk about how maybe 3 of them could work remotely and we could rotate it. Oh, well, the data that the data, how do we get the data? Well, let's be creative. The whole country went to Zoom, went to a work from home economy for all this time. So with all of the millions we have in reserves, I'm not saying spend it all, but I'm saying the financial aspect was not an issue. And even if an analysis was done that said, you know what, there's 25 departments and 5 of them, you could take some people, you could rotate them, and they could work from home, they could still answer questions, it would have lessened the risk than putting all those people in the building. And when I say all those people, this is going to get a little in the weeds, but the town of Wallingford stop loss insurance, which is a form of insurance that overlays our ASO plan, we can't get insurance company. We have Anthem because nobody else will bid on it, because our population of workers and their dependents is too sick. So my point is, we know that these are people who fit the category in COVID of people who are more vulnerable. And to me, it should have been explored. As someone who believes in pro-life, that's a pro-life issue. And what it was ideology. And the ideology was, the mayor believes people have to work from their office. People come to work 9 to 5. And I think ideology trumped reality. And for him to double down on that in his mailer was I completely disagree with that.
Yeah, I want to move on to another topic, but the little knowledge I have of the American Rescue Plan Act, the little knowledge I have informs me that money could be easily available to upgrade technology in town hall. So when the next pandemic comes, town hall will be set up so that more workers will be able to work remotely and therefore, protect the health of those that work for the town.
I do. I know you want to move on. I just need to point out, I know,
Yeah.
It was Stephen Civitelli. This criticism is not about Wallingford's response. Stephen Civitelli, our health director, continues to do an amazing job. The mayor gave him all sorts of latitude. So kudos there. I'm not criticizing all that work. I'm just saying, specific to this issue, to me, it was a fundamental disagreement with I had. Sorry, I just want to clarify.
So there was a mailer that Riley O'Connell sent out that was controversial, and that was his mailer that had the picture of a puppy dog on it, a dog behind a chain link fence, and it said, "Animals suffer, Dickinson does nothing." And then on the backside it says, "All Mayor Dickinson has done is lie," about the Wallingford Animal Shelter. There were some people that reacted very strongly against that, believing it was too harsh. Riley supporter says, well, it's about time the mayor's been called out for truthiness problems. Where do you stand on that mailer? Did it have any effect?
I got the mailer. I read it. I don't know where it was inaccurate. It was a very simple mailer. The mayor, I don't know if the mayor lied. Let me say that. The mayor, maybe he forgot, but I think Riley had a great quote. He said, well, that's worse if he forgot. That's worse. But it was a misstep. The dog pound, Steve Knight, the columnist in the Record Journal, called it an unenforced error, I think was the actual term. I've heard different, the dog pound thing is baffling. I've heard different, I've heard some people say, well, there's no other, most of the shelters in the state don't have air conditioning. Right. They also don't have a $700,000 gift that's sitting right there. So to me, the dog pound shelter, it's baffling how it was handled. And if your reaction to it is you're reacting to the mailer, then then you should be reacting to the situation. All the mailer is doing is explaining what happened. And I looked at the mailer. Now, our dog's suffering. I believe that in the Record Journal article, the animal control officer said, no, they're not suffering, but they're uncomfortable. I mean, I was like, oh man. And I think the mayor said, yeah, he claimed it was all false. And I was kind of waiting for, okay.
Yeah. And
that was it. It's wrong. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay. So, I was not, I think the COVID work from home stuff is a bigger deal than the dog pound, but I think I'm in the minority there. But did it have an impact? I think it absolutely had an impact. And again, if you're a voter, don't blame Riley for that. Blame what happened. Blame why did this happen? And why couldn't I think the mayor has built up enough goodwill to say, look, I didn't remember the memo from that 2018. It has not been a priority. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm going to fix this. And it's going to happen. He could have done that and it would have gone away, but it was doubling down. No, we have to wait for the new. So anyway, yeah.
So just very quickly, what I'm hearing from you is the mailer was fair and appropriate.
Yeah.
All right. I've got a slightly different take on it. I don't disagree. I do agree with you. A slightly different take. And that is most people don't know this. And actually a lot of people on the council don't know or maybe not agree with my view, but over the years, the mayor has had, in my view, truthiness problems, and no one has confronted it or highlighted it because they thought it would be too rough and too rude. But the regular viewers on my show know that one of the mantras that I use is don't give undue deference to the official version, because often there are truthiness issues behind the official version. The most egregious was back in 2016 when the mayor deceived about, or his administration deceived about the amount of the surplus. They just made up another number, not the real surplus number, but they made up another number that was smaller and put it out there, hoping that the Record Journal and the public and the council would believe it. That was the most egregious. And there we go. Let's change the subject and focus on the council. Let's do that. Let's put the numbers up. These are the council tallies in the order of biggest vote getter to the smallest vote getter among the winners. And we see that Christina Tata, Vinnie Cerrone, Vinnie Testa, and Tom Laffin are up there in the top four. Give us a very quick review of what these numbers tell you. Who had a good night? Who had a bad night? Any other lesson that you take away from this?
I'm not going to be quick. First of all, Christina Tata killed it again. Nobody thought, you can't repeat as top vote getter. Well, she did, and she worked really hard. And let me back up though. So I think when I look at this, before I get into specifics, I felt like Tuesday night was a victory for the council as a legislative body. And let me explain. You have, if you look down this list, I think you go all the way down to Joe Marone. I don't know how many votes did the mayor get? It was around 6,600.
6632.
6632. Okay. So you had the top four counselors all outperform the mayor. And then really, you keep going. I mean, the top seven were, top six were right there. So what that tells me is Wallingford looked at the council. You brought this up earlier in the show. The council has vetoed two budgets. This has been the most consequential term of the council I mean, I don't know. You've been around longer than I have following this stuff, but it's been crazy. And I think Wallingford said the council was ideologically divided. You have some councilors who were very much supporting the mayor and everything, and some other councilors in the middle, and then councilors who were on the other side. They sent all of them back. They said, we like all of what you're doing. You know, so I think that was my takeaway first, was you could go through this list. Christina Tata is somebody who I think has carved out her own path. She voted for the data centers. She was against the parking lot. She was, this budget we're in now, she made the motion. She was to lower the mill rate. She supported my budget the year before that kept everything flat. She was my biggest supporter on that, frankly, behind the scenes. So she is somebody who is not towed the party line all the time. She got rewarded. Vinnie Cervoni had a great night, and Vinnie Cervoni deserves to have a great night because Cervoni stepped up, I think, early in the pandemic, the mayor would not go on video with the Record Journal. Vinnie Cervoni went on video and reassured people. I think Vinnie has had his hands full with us. And I think he's, everything, the Zoom meetings, this rogue council. So Vinnie was rewarded, and it was great to see that. I was very happy for Vinnie Cervoni. It was actually great not to be named Vinnie, because Vinnie Testa, as you can see there, did really well. Also, right almost as up there with Cervoni. And I'm not going to go line by line. Don't worry. I know you're getting antsy. I could see there. But it was a good night for Testa. Laughlin, who has been a top vote getter in the past, did really well. Sam Carmody, newcomer. Sam's awesome. I mean, I know Sam, great, going to be a great counselor. Did very well for a newcomer. Joe Marone had his best night. I am going line by line. Joe Marone had his best night ever, and Joe Marone's been one of the most vocal critics of the administration, but I think a fair critic. It was not a great night for Craig. Craig's usually up in the upper tier, and we can get into that if you want. Autumn did fine. Autumn won, which is not easy as a first-time candidate. And Gina's there. Gina came in last, which we can get into, but I said this 2 years ago. What do you call the counselor who comes in last? Counselor. So overall, though, a good night. And I will add one more thing. It'd be interesting to add a column, and some people aren't going to like when I say this, to add a column to the right to show the fundraising. Because if you start looking at the fundraising lined up, then I'm going to argue that the real winners are Testa and Marone. And because Testa and Marone, I think, did zero fundraising.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I gotta move on because we have 2 video clips to squeeze in here. Yeah, but be pithy on this one. Was this a good night for community pool or a bad night for community pool? You get 2 sentences.
Every day that goes by and the pool isn't built is a bad day for the pool, and the costs are going to keep going up and up. So I don't think every day I don't think community pool is not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's bad either way. You could elect 9 Chris Shortells to the council. It would still be bad because the cost of them keep going up. So. Was
this a good night for the slate concept that the Democrats ran on for council and Board of Ed, or was this a bad night for the slate concept? And we do have a video clip of Alida Cella, the chair of the Democratic Town Committee, talking about the slate concept. But your view of it?
I don't fully understand it. I thought that the slate, you had those signs that I didn't understand. As you know, I kind of have a sense of humor that sometimes is inappropriate. But when the signs went up, I talked to one of my Democrat friends, and I won't say who, and I said, hey, I was going to text you and say, hey, I didn't do the signs. Like, I didn't prank you with those signs. And this person thought the joke was funny. But my point being, to put 6 names on a sign is probably just not what I would have done if I were running any campaign, and especially in an election where you had an open seat. So I think if that's a function of the slate, then no, the slate was not a good idea. And then I would also argue who was on the slate. No disrespect, but you had some people who didn't make the slate. I'm not really clear on the mechanics of that. There may have been a different slate that could have run that would have taken a 4th seat, maybe a majority. So I don't know. I have a lot of questions there.
Yeah, a lot of questions. So it looks like after talking with Alida Cella that she at least is in favor of doing the slate again. And that should, I would think, spark an honest assessment within the Democratic Town Committee as to whether or not, that works, whether it's going to work in the future. But one of the rationales for the slate is sort of a rebellion against the power structure. People that run for office and succeed are usually connected in some way. They have deep family connections or a long Christmas card list. They have some money, built-in name recognition, and typically those are the people who are electable, and parties usually seek those people out because they are electable and win. The slate goes in the opposite direction and says, we're going to go the other way, and it doesn't matter if someone has these attributes, these qualities of name recognition, connections, things like that. And I think if the Democrats go in that direction, they're digging themselves into a much deeper and deeper hole, because they don't quite get how politics, I think, work. Voters vote for name recognition primarily, and after that, it's other factors. But your thoughts on my thoughts?
I agree with you, and I guess I feel like the I get that, and I'm not. I think, from my mind, if I'm the Democrats, I would look at some of the slate I had. Let's go with the slate that ran, and I would say, well, Vinny Testa doesn't need to be on. Vinny Testa is going to win. He'll put up one sign. He'll look how he did. Sam's the first timer, so we'll leave Sam out of it. Gina, I think, is I know she's on the bottom, but Gina has name recognition. I would put all my energy behind Bruce and Alexa and Nicole and build them up. Heck, put a sign with just those three names. If you want to do this team thing, those are the people you want to build up, or do some kind of concerted effort. One thing that and this isn't so much the slate, but I've always struggled with the whole lawn sign thing. And what I mean is, and I struggled with this before I was involved, and I struggled with it as somebody who puts lawn signs on. You drive by a house and you see every Republican sign or every Democrat sign, and you just roll your eyes and keep driving. That mean you might as well not have the sign. I mean, anybody who drives by my house is going to roll their eyes. Well, of course, Shortell's putting up. What I've always thought is we should all agree. I'm just going to put Tom Laughlin's sign up, or you're going to put up Marone's sign. And my point being is that there's a way to do this to help the team, but you help the people that are newer, who don't have what you said. Put all the effort behind them so that Wallingford knows more about them, because Vinny Testa and Gina, they don't need it. So I don't know, but what do I know?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. One sign standing alone on a property probably has greater impact than 6 signs all clustered together. So when someone drives by, they can't even distinguish 6 signs. And if they do, they would say, well, that's a Republican operative who lives there, or that's a Democratic operative who lives there. It's not an independent thinker. So I think one sign standing alone, has a greater impact. And if we're going door to door, I think one candidate presenting him or herself to one voter and trying to make that connection and that bond one-on-one is the way to go, rather than knocking on doors in groups or even in pairs. And if you're a new candidate trying to break in, it is tough. It is tough, not just in Wallingford, it's a tough, across the world. But one way of doing that is to explain to the voter, regardless of party affiliation, what makes you special, what individual qualities, not team qualities, what individual qualities that you bring to the table. But if you choose to run on a slate or as a group, that group needs to have a very strong, clear message that distinguishes that group from the opposing group. And that certainly didn't happen this year. Your thoughts on my thoughts?
Agree with everything. And what happened to diversity? And by diverse, I mean ideological diversity. And maybe I am weird. I'm going to say maybe I'm weird. But as a citizen, I don't want a Republican team that all thinks the same. And I don't want a Democrat team. I want 9 people up there. And here's the thing with our current council. Just let me speak for the Republicans. If you put the 6 of us in the room with the mayor, I am not convinced you could get the 7 of us to agree that the sun rises in the east, let alone on budget policy, priorities. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that it's the sort of the marketplace of ideas. Everything has to go through the funnel, and you got to answer Craig's questions and Cervone's rebuttals and Laughlin's questions and Marone and Tata. You got to go through all that. And to me, as a citizen, what comes out of that, hopefully, is a better result, is something that's a little bit more tested. I want people of different ideological background. I don't want a homogeneous council that all wants to build the pool. And so when the pool comes back and when the same tiny pool is $10 million, oh, we got to build the pool because the Democrat Town Committee told us to, or because the mayor, I don't want that.
So you're describing a bit of a sausage there, sort of the sausage effect. But I need to cut this thread short, play some videos, and on the back end, get your reaction. We're going to play two videos. One is the chair of the Democratic Town Committee, Alida Cella. And without a break, we're going to go right into my brief talk with Riley O'Connell.
Okay.
And on the back end, I'm going to get your thoughts on what they both said. Alida Cella, thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show. We appreciate it. We had an eventful night last night, Tuesday night, election night. Just give us your impression of how it all went.
Well, it was very interesting. We went into the night knowing we had a good amount of absentee ballots. We knew that turnout was up, but I had also seen that happen with Jared Liu, where turnout was up, and in relative terms, the Republican turnout was up just as high as the Democrat turnout. So despite all of our hard work, we were not able to overcome the numbers then. And a similar thing happened, though not to the same degree this time. Yeah. I am very proud that we narrowed the gap by so much. I think we made significant ground. I feel like our DTC didn't necessarily lose, but I am very sad that I feel like the town of Wallingford lost, and we still have more building to do.
Yeah, you're talking about narrowing the gap, and I think you meant Riley O'Connell's campaign.
Correct.
Which was surprised everybody, I think, how close that was. If you could break out for us the distinction between the campaign of the council candidates and Riley's campaign, were they different operations, or any way you want to describe it?
It's interesting in my mind, and they were all the same campaign, even though Riley had his own campaign, his own consultant, his own campaign manager. We really worked hand in hand to work for him, and he worked for us to get everybody elected. It really was a tremendous team effort all the way around. I mean, I'm sure you've seen literature and advertisements that he was part of everything we were doing, and we were part of most of what he was doing. In fact, most of what he ran, he actually brought to us to talk to us about it, and had input from our campaign and vice versa.
Yeah, so we know that from the results, the challengers were not successful. I'm talking about the council now. Actually, yeah. Those are the Board of Ed too. The challengers were not all that successful. Sam Carmody, of course, won. He was a challenger, but on the Board of Ed side, none of the challengers won, and all the incumbents won. Mm-hmm. I would think that there was some disappointment in the room at your headquarters on Tuesday night. If you could take us back to just the sentiment in the room, what the buzz and conversation was as the results came in.
I think the disappointment was mostly stemming from because we worked so hard, right? Because we felt change in our conversations on the doors with voters in Wallingford. We felt the anger that people were feeling, their frustration with this mayor, with their frustration with this Republican administration altogether, with how things are going in Wallingford. And I think the disappointment, again, like I said, was just for the loss for the town, that people just aren't moving past this administration to something greater. We have a vision, we have a plan, we have a team of people who are supremely qualified to get it done. And it just, that I think was the heart of the disappointment. was what we have to offer isn't going to be able to be on the table this time. And that's what it came down to. What I'm super heartened by is that most people are ready to pick up and keep fighting. And now we've learned a lot of valuable lessons, and we know where we need to work and put that work in to make it happen for the next time.
So give me a valuable lesson. What are one or two of them?
Well, we have to analyze, again, like I mentioned before we even started, that we were up until 11 o'clock last night and I worked a full day this morning. So I haven't even had a chance to look at, break down the numbers of where we need to pull the numbers from. But we have some ideas, and they were bantered about today. Plus, I felt like this campaign, I was building the machine while flying. Right. I took over in April of 2020, right as the pandemic hit. We haven't, as a DTC, ever had an in-person meeting. And yet we have 60 to 75 people on our Zoom meetings almost every single month. It's unbelievable. And the number of volunteers that are coming out of the woodwork, just from a postcard, just from a handwritten postcard saying, come volunteer with us, the phone calls we're getting and the emails and the texts that we're getting of people who want to see change in Wallingford. I think as long as we continue to put out our vision and build our organization, we are going to overcome and have a change in what's happening in Wallingford. And I can't wait to see it happen.
So for the first time that ever, I think, I'm not sure, but the Democrats ran on a slate concept. I'm talking about the council candidates.
Correct. Council, Board of Ed, everything was a slate.
Yeah. So give us a primer as to what a slate is. Just what is a slate, and how did it work, and would you do the same thing again?
Well, to answer the questions backwards, absolutely. We would do the same thing again. I think that we have at-large voting in Wallingford, which is a huge problem for any candidate trying to run for the first time without money or name recognition. You are literally running against 12 other candidates town-wide, right? So there's 43,000 people that live in town. I think, I don't know, 40% of them are registered voters. You've got to reach 40% of the registered voters in Wallingford town-wide and distinguish yourself from one of 12 candidates. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible unless you have money, planes to fly, trucks to drive around town, a huge community that you happen to be a part of. You own an inn on Route 5 that everybody drives by every day. Your family runs the Fishbein 4K and your last name happens to be Fishbein, right? All of these things. That's why we see the leadership we see in town, right? That's 100% the reason why we see the leadership we see in town. And it's all because of at-large voting. And no disrespect meant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those people are the best, most qualified people to be running our town. It just means that they happen to have money or name recognition and get reelected time and time again. And again, it's a loss for Wallingford.
But I want to get back to the slate. I think,
well,
and I want to steer you there. I think the money is pooled. I think that's what it means.
That's exactly right.
And but someone has to make a decision as to how the money gets spent. How does that work in a slate operation?
Well, we tried to do it as democratically as we possibly can. And that presented, again, these are all lessons learned, and we're going to all be debriefing on best practices and how we can do it better next time. By our bylaws, our DTC can't spend anything over $500. So anytime we had a major expense, I needed to quickly get our executive board approval. And that had to be coordinated with our treasurer and with our campaign manager, et cetera, et cetera. So it was, I think it ran as smoothly as it possibly could. There were some clumsy moments, but for the most part, we got things approved. Candidates got the items that they really wanted. We were able to afford a consultant, right? An individual candidate would never be able to afford a consultant, but because we were pooling all of our funds, we were able to have two consultants, one for Riley, one for us. We could make sure we could have the biggest pool of ideas and guidance that we could possibly have, and input. So it gave us lots of options and gave us lots of fodder. So
yeah. So going forward, you have an election in another 2 years. I think what you're saying, but I'm going to put words in your mouth to sort of evoke from you a
Sure.
correction, to jerk the leash if I get it wrong. But I think what you're saying is 2 years from now, we'll see the slate. We might see candidates without that built-in, baked-in name recognition that you were talking about just a few minutes ago. So I think you're saying we're going to stay the course, but try to execute better. But correct me where I go wrong.
So that's my goal, right? Again, we're a democratic organization. This is going to be subject to votes. This is going to be subject to what the candidates want to do. But in my vision and what I see, I thought that team building exercise we had was awesome. And that it means it helps us build our organization because we have a collective vision that we're fighting for. And because of at-large voting and because it's impossible for our candidates to distinguish themselves, we need what the Republicans have, right? The Republicans don't split their vote. When Republicans go into that voting booth, they vote straight Republican and they don't vote for any Democrat, save for maybe Sam Carmody here or there, or maybe they split their vote and maybe voted for a few for Riley. But for the most part, you can see it from the count for Board of Ed and Town Council, from just the brief analysis I had, that it doesn't look like Republicans split their vote. We need the Democrats to do the same thing, because if they're like me, when I first came to Wallingford, I was going to use all 9 of my votes, right? And without name recognition, which is impossible to build across, one of 12 candidates in such a short period, we need to give a vision and have people buy into the DTC and have and buy into our team of candidates who are going to support our new mayoral candidate and sell it that way. Because that's what's going to happen as a mayor with a group of people who are going to help him execute his vision for this town. It's got to be a team effort. There's just no other way. What we're doing now is not working.
We've only got about a minute left before we run out of time. In my general reading this morning, the newspapers, some of the commentators and columnists are talking about a Biden effect nationally and in the state. Republicans seem to have done well. We've got the results in from Virginia. Republican governor won. That was a shocker to some. Just anecdotal reporting that there was a Biden effect that put Democrats at a disadvantage. Your reaction to that comment I just made?
I can't. I don't know if that is true or not. I'd have to talk to Republican voters and find out what they had to say about it. I think we made huge gains. So if there was a Biden effect, I'm not sure that it really impacted us. While I was hopeful we would win, I would have been crazy to have gone into this thinking that in 2 years I could build a ship strong enough that we could beat this mayor in one go. But I certainly hoped that was true, and certainly the numbers were going in that direction, but I'm not so sure it was a Biden effect as necessarily. We just have more building to do as a DTC, and we'll have to get there in 2 years instead of this year.
Thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show. We do appreciate it, and good luck in your role as chair of the Democratic Town Committee. A tough job, but good luck in 2 years. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Riley O'Connell, thanks for coming to the Citizen Mike Show. We appreciate it. But first, congratulations on an awesome campaign. I hate that word awesome. It's kind of trite, but surprising, forceful, impactful. I mean, I think you surprised everybody. So I know you didn't win and you're disappointed about that. And I get that, but it was really a significant result. But let's skip ahead to some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. So what happens now? Where do you go? What do you do professionally, politically, personally? What happens to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. And thanks for having me on again. Well, the bottom line is Wallingford's always been my town. It's always going to be my town, my home. So I'm certainly not going to just disappear. I'm very much going to still continue to be here. Politically going forward, I have no idea. That's a tough question, but I will say what I've learned in a large part over the course of this past year. I mean, I think not just me, but other candidates, we've had a huge, and other members of the community have had a huge impact on our town in so many ways by being members of the public. So I think there's a lot we can do and I fully intend to do to continue to be an active member and even be more active of a member of, of the Wallingford community, and continue bettering my community in that regard. Professionally and personally, well, we'll see. I've got some plans in mind, and we'll update that with, on my social media channels sometime soon, but we'll see. I don't want to call anything out too early.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is you have this really lucrative, impressive job offer, but you don't want to blow it by announcing it too soon, and they
No,
pull it
it's
back.
just I wouldn't say that. It's just I'll do my public service in other ways, essentially.
Okay. Do you think Wallingford is turning a corner politically, based on your experience campaigning and based on the results? And if you do, why? And if you don't think it's turning a corner, why? I mean, the mayor's been in office a long, long time. Do you think he sees, the writing on the wall and looking at the results and says, I'm not going to run again? What do you think?
Well, I think the mayor made it pretty clear that he probably does intend to run again. At least that's what he said in the Record Journal article about a week ago. So still early. We'll see. I don't know. It's politically, has Wallingford turned a new leaf? It's hard to say. I mean, it's still so fresh that I don't have enough space to really reflect on it, because even though the mayoral race was the closest it's been in over 30 years, unfortunately, the town council and board of ed race weren't as close as they've been previously. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. Now, don't get me wrong, we also got to put this in the context of last night was, an incredibly difficult night for Democrats across the country. It was, in general, being a Democrat was kind of a drag on every candidacy, both in the state of Connecticut and around the country in general. And that connection with national politics, unfortunately, even though I don't believe it has any place really in local politics, or very little place, definitely had an impact. I mean, I felt that I was at the poll standing, and since from 5:30 a.m. at Rock Hill to 7:50 and 7:50 p.m. And there was plenty of people that would come up to me, with the classic expletive Biden or, CRT or masks or whatever, that have no impact on what I can do as mayor. But, that fuels some people to vote a certain way. So it's hard to say. We'll have to see. We'll have to reflect on the numbers and dig deeper. Obviously, I'm still catching up on sleep based on the bags under my eyes, and I haven't had the chance to fully reflect, but we'll see. I hope so. At the very least, even if Wallingford isn't turning a leaf politically, I hope it's turning a leaf in terms of more people getting involved in voting in the community and just kind of having more seats at the table, essentially.
So absentee ballots broke heavily for you and heavily for Democrats. How come?
Well, they actually didn't break nearly as heavily as we were expecting and hoping for. You got to keep in mind, and again, this is one of those things where people are just going to latch onto this and call, crazy conspiracies. If you look at the breakdown, because public information, the party breakdown of the absentee ballots requested, it was something like out of the 1,500 or 1,600 something ballots requested, it was about 1,000 Democrats, less than 200 Republicans, and then 500 something unaffiliated. So of course that's going to break mostly for a Democrat running. I don't think there's much to it other than that. Unfortunately, this is a pretty new phenomenon. We saw a little bit of it in the presidential election, but even more so now with these completely unfounded calls in the national realm for a voter fraud and all these other things, stolen elections and all this other crazy stuff. It's, I think, discouraged a lot of Republicans, or some Republicans, from trusting the absentee process, and have been told not to vote absentee, which is unfortunate because it's a great way to involve more people in the process.
So if you had a magic wand and you wave it and you declare that you would have one or two legacy impacts, your campaign would have a lasting effect or impact, even though you lost, what would that impact or impacts be?
Well, that's easy. Just that some of the issues that we focused on would be addressed. I don't have that magic wand, and frankly, I'm not a betting person, but I wouldn't put any money on most of the things I've talked about being addressed. I don't think taxes are going to stop going up. I don't think community pools ever going to open again. I don't think the ARPA money is going to be touched until the very last second when the mayor brings it to town council and they have a choice to do it his way, or it just goes back to the federal government. I think all these things are going to happen. But if I have that magic wand, I'd say, because this election was so close, I hope this is, I congratulate the mayor on winning his reelection, but I hope this is a wake-up call for him. and his party in general to say, these are issues that, even though we've been in power for so long, we have not addressed. And hopefully they make it even harder for the person running against them next time by fixing all the problems that I brought up. That'd be ideal.
So yeah, I think it's natural when you go through a campaign like this, and you've been at it for months. You look back and you say, if I had to do it all over again, there'd be one thing I would have tweaked, one thing I would have done differently. Maybe not, but I know that's happened to most folks. Did that happen to you? Have you looked back and said, I would have done something a little bit differently and maybe the result would have changed? What do you say to that?
One of the Record Journal reporters asked me this at headquarters before the results came in, like, are you feeling nervous? And I said, I'm almost never been, this is almost my least nervous part of the campaign, because I have nothing to do other than sit here. We did when I say we, I mean my team, our volunteers. I mean, we're talking a full army of people did everything possible. Not only that, we got lucky and did everything right. I don't think anyone made a real, and part of my team, my campaign made a real fatal or even minuscule error. So, I'm the first person to point out, any flaw or mistake that I've made and that my team's made. But I really think there's nothing that comes to mind that I would have changed. Obviously, would have liked a different outcome, but that's how elections work. We gave it our all, and at the end of the day, the voters made their decision.
So part of the same question. So you think you did absolutely everything you could have? I mean, if you had another $10,000, would that have made a difference, or it really wouldn't have?
Again, you can't buy an election, but the money always helps. And that's why we raised so much. We raised over 40 grand because it helps get your message out there. For a lot of people, they never seen me before. They never met me before until earlier in this election. Wallingford's a bigger town than people realize. And so getting our message out, a lot of the money we put behind pushing the debate clip. That's not even an edited clip. That's just in the debate itself, getting people to, try to get involved in local politics, understand what's going on. So I'm sure it would have helped a little bit, but that's so short. Yeah, $10,000 would have helped, but I wouldn't be something I would do differently. I wouldn't have stopped doing something else I did to get on the phone for another 100 hours, however long, several hundred hours to raise another 10 grand.
So the council candidates did something completely different, and the Board of Ed candidates did something completely different from what I think has never been done before. They ran as a slate. Wallingford is sort of unfamiliar with the slate, never seen it maybe in other towns, but how did your campaign interface with a slate? Did you have a separate operation from the council candidates? Just how did it all work?
Yeah, and well, you're really going to make me think hard about the last question too, then, because if there was one thing we could have improved on, it was coordination between the slate. My team, I was glad my team was separate. We had my own staff, my own campaign candidate committee was important, and that's how it should be for someone running top of the ticket. But it did make it tough to coordinate best we can with the slate. And I think we kind of saw that a bit in the results, and the fact that even though my election, or the mayoral election, was the closest it's been in 30 plus years, the town council and Board of Ed election really wasn't nearly as close as it's even been in some recent elections. So that's something we can improve upon. I think the slate in general is a great idea, and I fully support it, and I hope they stick with it, but it's a lot of growing pains with it. And there's a lot I think we need to learn from things that we did partially right and things we straight up did wrong in regards to some of the slate stuff. But the candidates were fantastic. It's too bad that they didn't get elected, and I hope they stick with it, because across the board, the Democratic candidates for Board of Ed and Town Council, I was extremely impressed by throughout the election.
So is the mayor impossible to beat? Is he in office for as long as he wants?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think you can't take him for, you can't underestimate him. He still managed to beat me, and he's won, 20 terms in a row now. But people are inching closer every time, and he's making more and more mistakes, unfortunately. And again, I say unfortunately because, even though it might be better for the next person run against him, it's horrible for the town. So I hope, I joke about this. I don't joke. I say this to people. I said, I hope another Republican does eventually primary him and run to be mayor, because even though I would still probably, obviously it depends on the person, but probably still, support the Democrat running, the town's probably in a better place, as opposed to, we just need someone who's active and wants to kind of push the town along in the right direction, as opposed to kind of sit back.
So final question for you, then we're gonna run out of time. Are you gonna run again for mayor?
It's been how many hours? Less than 24? I have no idea. So
Thought I'd ask.
yeah, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. Plenty of others have asked it. And I thought about this before the election, even before when we first started the campaign. And it's one of those things where if we think that's what the town wants and what the town needs, a year from now, we'll revisit it. But right now I'm focused on being involved in my community in a variety of other ways.
So what I'm hearing is you're not ruling it out.
I don't rule anything out.
Right. Hey, thanks for coming on the Citizen Mike Show, and good luck in whatever you try professionally, personally, politically. We hope to see you back on the show in due course. So thanks again and congratulations.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Chris, those were the two videos. What were your takeaway after watching both?
I think that Alida, look, she worked hard. The Democrats worked hard. So I think a lot of credit there. I would respectfully disagree on the slate, but again, we've already covered that. I think the red wave thing, I think that as Riley said, I think Riley and I agree. I like Riley we'll get to Riley in a minute. I thought he was great, but I thought there is a red wave. I think the other problem that maybe goes unmentioned is when Alida talked about freezing taxes, and I think Riley mentioned this too, the argument against the council, and I think I said this earlier in the show, the council did freeze taxes or in fact lower them this year, froze them 2 years ago. The council argument that the Democrats have to make is tough when you had me and you had Marone and Tata and Fishbein, and it was the Republicans who led on that. No offense to my Democrat colleagues. Jason had led in earlier councils, but he never was able to get the votes. I want to give Jason's Andrew credit. But the last two budgets, it was me and then it was Tata. So I feel like, she wants a team to get in there and why do you need a team? You already have a team. You already have counselors in there who are doing it. The issue is probably from their perspective, it's the mayor's office. I thought Riley, is just a very intelligent person. And I think he has a bright, frankly, Alida, Alida should run. I mean, I love listening to, I don't have to agree with her, but I thought Alida has a lot of charisma. She's very intelligent. Riley is the same way. You got two, I hope they both stick around. I would say, Alida, let someone else run the party. You should run for council. You should run for mayor.
Okay.
Riley, I'm not even joking. I'm not joking.
I know you're not.
And Riley, same thing. Riley, I hope does not go away. Riley, I thought ran a great campaign. And
okay, we got it. Next time around, it'll be Cella versus O'Connell. That'll be the concept.
I'm not trying to pit them against each other, but I said this early. I think I said this 2 years ago. There are people out there who could run that don't run. Jay Shea is the one I know Jay Shea would kill me for saying. Jay Shea and I served on the Board of Ed together. Jay Shea's a Democrat. Jay is great. Put Jay in there. He would do phenomenally well. And you have people like that who I just think there's a lot of people that aren't maybe interested anymore. But it was a tough year to be. I think Riley's right. It was a tough election to be a Democrat, which just makes what he did and what Testa did. And Sam raised $1 billion. So I'm going to put an asterisk a little bit next to Sam. No offense, Sam, but you raised $1 billion. But Testa and Riley, I think, to do what they did in a red wave is really, really commendable.
Let's make that the final word. We have run out of time. We're going to talk about the Board of Ed race on another show and put those results up on another show. We just didn't have time this time, but congratulations to everyone who ran for office for the Board of Ed and for the winners. Chris, thanks for coming on the show, and hope to see you on another show in due course, and enjoy your retirement, in the next year when you finally get there.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching the Citizen Mike Show. We do appreciate it.